This is the Pal Talk News Network.
The views expressed are solely those of the speaker and not necessarily those of paltalk.com, AVM Software, or its advertisers.
News Talk is online. News Talk Online is a production of paltalk.com, the largest multimedia interactive program on the internet with more than 4 million unique users, on demand on iTunes and on YouTube, and on my blog, GaryBaumgarten.com, where you're encouraged to post your comments, whether you agree with yours truly or not. No retribution. And thanks to our good friends at CRN Digital Talk Radio, we're syndicated to an additional 12 million households. I am your host, Gary Baumgarten. I welcome you to the show, and I remind you that you should be going to paltalknewsnetwork.com early and often, just like voting in Chicago, to read stories that you may or may not see here or read in the mainstream media. Today at noon, we went to New York time, to Ground Zero. We spent a half an hour there looking at the issue of the fact that it's 9 years almost since the September 11th attacks, and it's still a pit. One building was built off-site. Another one, they're just slowly now building on the site, and today they were supposed to decide whether to find the proper financing to build 2 other towers on the site. And people who live and work in the area have just about had it. You know, the whole thing was supposed to be completed by the 10th year anniversary, which would have been next year in September. No way that's going to happen. And you know what, guys? They built the Empire State Building in 1 year. So politics got in the way, and it really is a shame. Yesterday we talked about the threats against members of Congress. Now we have found out that today Congressman Anthony Weiner, a Democrat of New York, his district office has received a threatening package with a white powdery substance in it, and hazmat teams are on the scene. And Representative Eric Cantor, a Republican who was a leader of the opposition to the Health Reform Act, somebody capped around that city talk for fired a gunshot into his campaign office. This is what's happening. I'm telling you, for those of you who can't handle the process that led to the passage of the bill, to the point where you have to take matters into your own hands and resort to violence, I certainly hope that the bill provides for mental health care, because you need it. Speaking about mental health care, here's a loony kazoonie. His name is Osama bin Laden. At least this recording that Al Jazeera played today, audio recording, purports to be Osama bin Laden. He is threatening retaliation against Americans if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the admitted mastermind of the September 11th attacks, is convicted and executed. If he is executed, Osama bin Laden or somebody purporting to be Osama bin Laden says that Al-Qaeda will come after Americans. Not just in the United States. He didn't say come after America. He said come after Americans. Now we do know that the United States attacks on the Taliban in Afghanistan and in Pakistan is disrupting Al-Qaeda's command and communication structure, because there have been intercepts of communications from operatives in the field to the cave or wherever the hell they're all hiding, asking for direction. What are we supposed to be doing? We haven't heard from you. But I'm wondering what you guys think about this. Should we just cower under the threat of additional attacks against us? Us being freedom-loving people, the West, throughout the world? because if we convict this guy and execute him, they're going to come after us. Should we just say, well, in order to save more lives, we should agree that no matter where he is convicted, whether it's in a criminal court of law or whether it's in a military tribunal, that the death penalty is off the table? Because is it really worth it to execute this one guy? Because they're going to come after us if we do? Does this not, Boaz Franco, come right to the heart of what terrorism is all about? They scare the bejeebers out of you. I mean, this whole thing, these past 9.5 years, since the September 11th attacks, Boaz, reminds me when I was a child and I used to look under the bed or open the door to the closet looking for the boogeyman. You know, this is how we're now we've been conditioned by these people.
Well, you know, I'm glad you kind of came up with that word conditioned, Gary, because quite frankly, if you ask me, we have not been conditioned yet to beware of terrorism. I have to say it, Gary, the average American is still does not recognize the inherent danger of terrorism. You know, I think at least a majority, and I'm making an estimated guess here, Gary, I think a majority of Americans still believe that that's it. 9/11 passed. It's not going to happen again to us. We feel safe. Everything's just fine. I'll tell you, Gary, I don't feel safe, and I don't think this is the end of it. So I don't think Americans have been conditioned. Now, when you use that word conditioned, Gary, you know where I'm going with this. In my life, in my earlier days, in my 20s and 30s when I lived in the Middle East, believe me, I was conditioned to understand what terrorism was and how to be aware of it. And I look around today, and it's since 2001, it has not. It really, maybe I would say probably to New Yorkers, it has hit home, but certainly not on this coast. It hasn't.
Well, Boaz, that's interesting that you make the analogy of Israel. The Israelis clearly know what a terrorist threat is. They've been subjected to suicide bombings over decades now. And yet, Boaz Franco, I don't see Israelis cowering in their homes, fearful to go out. In fact, I recall that every time a pizza parlor was blown up in Tel Aviv, as soon as they, pardon the graphics of this, removed all the body parts and cleaned up the shards of glass from the street and boarded it up, the avenue was filled with people going to other stores and other restaurants in that area